Let me begin by acknowledging the presence of our Minister, the Honourable Dr. Grant Gibbons, and also his PS, William Francis, I saw. Yes, he's over there. And the lady that the Minister has appointed to lead all matters AC, America's Cup, in government, who's doing an incredible job, Jasmine Smith. Thank you all for being here. I want to begin by saying that really our role, certainly the ACBDA's role here tonight, is all about listening and all about welcoming and encouraging your suggestions, your input. This has been and will continue to be a complicated job for us. The job of producing the infill, in fact, is a project led by the Ministry of Works and the West End Development Corporation, who asked us to assist in coordinating certain aspects of it. So the physical production of the infill is something we are acting as an agent on behalf, and that is getting to a point where a lot of it is complete. All of the infill is in place, and we are now beginning the process of creating, if you will, the island that will become the America's Cup Village. And it is from that that this meeting and future meetings and focus will start to begin, because it is on that 9-acre site that the America's Cup Village will rise and needs to be in place and operational, obviously, by May of 2017. I'm delighted to advise that we are well ahead of schedule with our commitments. And we should be able to present to the ACA, subject to planning permission and everything else, what we need to do ahead of the commitment that we have. It's also important, I think, to note at this point that we are, as the ACBDA, appointed by the Minister, created by the Minister, we have responsibilities for advising and delivering on the HVA, the Host Venue Agreement. Part of those commitments are now being manifested in what we're meeting about tonight, and I'll go in and give you a little bit more of that in a minute. We have been charged with creating a master plan that will be used and will be submitted to planning, we're hoping, in March of this year. As part of that process, there needs to be what's called an environmental impact assessment, or an EIA, and part of that process is ensuring that we are consulting with as broad a cross-section of the community as we possibly can. That includes invested stakeholders, many departments within government, BEST, other environmental groups, the businesses, the teams, anybody that have any form of relationship to not only directly the infill, but also in providing the services that will be necessary to deliver the America's Cup Village. The parties that are mainly involved in this, however, as we create it and that we are trying to serve, include obviously the competitive teams. As you know, there are 6 teams that are entered in the America's Cup, so all, and as many of them that are here at the moment, are being consulted. The race management organization, who have a responsibility for delivering the race course itself. Obviously the worldwide media, spectators and fans, the commercial sponsors and partners, and anybody else that's involved. So we've reached out as much as we can, and will continue to do, in the process of creating this EIA. Tonight is a very important meeting for us. From the get-go, the Minister has encouraged us to widen the input, to involve and engage the Bermuda community as much as we can, and so this meeting is essential to us. It is necessary, as always in any meetings, to create a little bit of discipline and a little bit of focus. Many of you may have comments, questions, ideas that are nothing related to this, and we are delighted to receive that information. And we'll give you an email address, and there are pads of paper on the side of the room. If you have questions or answers, please give them to us, hand them to us, or apply through our email, because tonight we need to focus on the EIA and the data that we're giving you, the suggestions and comments. This is vital and it's important. We don't want to dilute the impact of what we're doing here with broadening it. There will be further public meetings when we'll get into a broader discussion. As we've already done a number of them, we'll continue to do those as plans start to come together. I think it's important that I understand that I, again, just talk briefly about the role of the two primary groups. There's the America's Cup Event Authority, who are the group that are appointed, it's complicated, but effectively are appointed to run the event or the events. Those include, for instance, as you know, this year, 6 World Series events across the world, effectively, and of course the major events that will take place in May and June of 2017. They organize and they operate those events, and they are also responsible for promoting that event to a global audience. We, as have major marketing partners in the form of the Bermuda Tourism Authority, and they are engaged in that promotion as well. They are also responsible for ensuring the growth, the commercial growth and the success of the brand that is the America's Cup, and for its continuance and its growth as we move forward. And this America's Cup is different and is focused on a different set of parameters. And I think one of the reasons Bermuda was very successful and won the bid is because we bring a new experience. We are able to put the teams in a sort of pit row experience in the South Basin at Wetgate Dockyard, and everything can be involved. The spectators can see all of the bases. They can be directly engaged, and the races themselves will be viewable from the village. Anybody that's been to the other World Series will know that sometimes you've had to drive for quite a long time to get from one area of the America's Cup to a different area. That will not be true when we deliver our situation in May and June. If you then look at what our role, the ACBDA role is, we are, as I said, responsible for the delivery of the commitments made in the contract between the ACBDA and Bermuda. And there are many of those, well over 100 commitments are in there. Many of them, some of them have already been completed in the delivery of the World Series that we held successfully in October, but there are many more now that we're working towards. We are responsible for the delivery of the site, which is what we're talking about tonight, that the event village will operate from, and for the land on which the bases are being built. Within that, we are also responsible for providing all of the infrastructure, the utilities and waste management, for instance, the health and safety, the security, all that go around this village. We have to deliver an exclusive area within which the race can take place. We will support race management in delivering that. We did an enormous job with volunteers in both regatta support and in providing security and protection around the racecourse, all with a large number of volunteers. We have to develop a comprehensive public and safety plan. We have to develop a comprehensive transport plan. We have to develop a comprehensive health plan so that we are ensured that we are able to not only look after anybody that might be injured in the races, but also for the public that will be viewing it from the different sites. And of course, the Minister is working very hard with his team on the legislative and policy that surrounds all of the aspects of the America's Cup. We already have an America's Cup Act, and that needs to be looked at on a continual basis to ensure that it is a vibrant and robust document that supports the commitments that we have to make. So we, in simple terms, will provide the flat surface on which the America's Cup Village will operate. And that is the focus of this meeting. And all of the in-feed, transport, etc., how do you move what could be 13,000, 15,000 people from different aspects, different points of the island onto the village and minimize any disruption and minimize any problems for any of those people? How do you ensure there's enough electricity, that there are enough as basic things like toilet facilities, fresh water, internet, all of those aspects we're responsible for providing. The ACBDA itself is made up of very few employees, but an extraordinary broad band of volunteers. We have a large number of committees, all of whom are staffed by volunteers, that cover everything from aspects of regatta support, transportation, infrastructure. We have a committee that is focused on legacy and sustainability. What will Bermuda look like in 2018? Will there be a positive impact, benefit from the America's Cup? Obviously vital, very important. Communications, huge issue. We are required to provide enormous amounts of data transmission potential, so that, just as an example, the boats that are now being used or will be used shortly, what are called the sports boats, which are basically version 2 or 3 of the testbed boats that are used to collect data. Enormous amounts of data flow from those boats, which are full of electronic data sensors, and are sent to computers, enabling them to design the final boat, which will be the AC-50, and that AC-50 will be the boats that are used in May and June of 2017. With that, and again, you'll be delighted to hear that my role is very short, let's just set some goals for this meeting. What we want to do is inform you of the draft plan that will become the master plan, and there are many details still to be put together, that will be the master plan that will be submitted to planning. We want to seek your input as part of the process of the EIA, and we want to try and reflect your views and your opinions and not solicit from you the problems or the challenges. And I urge you that when you put forward what about or this is a problem, come back to us and follow that up with what you think could be the solution. We're looking for positive ideas and impact. Right from the get-go, we said we want people involved as part of the solution, not involved as part of a challenge or part of a problem. We want people engaged as part of the solution. We have been given, we Bermudians have been given this extraordinary opportunity. We need to make sure it's done with a level of excellence that will enable us to stand high, with our heads high, held around the world, to say, they didn't think we could do it, the competitors didn't think we did it. Not only can we do it, we can do it with excellence. We need to remember, as we look at the plans that BEC are going to present tonight, that this is a 6-week event. This is not a 3-year structure that we're building, and it's not there permanently. It is there designed to service a 6-week event. Now, yes, there is a provision within the HVA that says we have effectively the first right to negotiate for, if Oracle win, for the next America's Cup. Dream, possibly, but it is something that we need to keep in the back of our minds. But that is not and should not be thought of as anything to do with permanence of what we are designing now. We are designing the facilities for a 6-week event. So my request to you is to bring your imaginations, bring your ingenuity and positive thinking to the process. Both tonight and tomorrow, as I keep saying, are essential. This is the Bermuda public, the Bermuda community's opportunity to participate in what is going to be an extraordinary event for Bermuda. Having said that, let me introduce the team that we have retained to lead us through the planning and EIA process. They have been with us from the get-go. They're an extraordinary group of individuals who bring enormous both sensitivity to the environment, but also expertise and understanding as to how perhaps you can achieve both objectives. You can be sensitive to the environment, you can be conscious of the need to preserve and enhance the environment, and certainly to create absolute minimum damage to the environment, at the same time can help us get to the point where we've created the facilities that we're obligated to provide. Let me introduce to you then the BEC team, which is led by Jack Ward over there. Annie Glasspool is around, she's right here. And I think somebody you're going to hear a lot from tonight is Christine Rickards, who is leading the EI Challenge. She's right here. So Christine, am I handing it to you? Yes. It's all yours.
I'd like to go over a few points. My primary role tonight is to share with you the information that we have to date on the project, and that's primarily in the format of the master plan, and we're going to get to that shortly. I'd also like to remind you what we have in the room tonight for you to see are some of the projections that we've worked out to date. Everything is in draft. Our master plan, a parking plan, and we also have documents pertaining to the kinds of buildings you might see on the site, some 3D mock-ups, and we also have another binder at the back relating to parking layouts, how we will provide for parking. I'll go through some of that as well. Your first slide up here speaks about the environmental impact assessment, what it is. It's not a process often used in Bermuda and probably should be used a bit more, and we're very thrilled to be involved in this project and be doing an EIA for it. So basically the EIA is a process to ensure that the environmental impacts of a project are properly understood and assessed. And if there are negative implications, we try to seek ways to mitigate those. Environment doesn't just mean the physical environment around us, it's a human environment, a social environment, as well as economic impacts. The first phase of environmental impact is scoping, and that's basically going out to share information with stakeholders and the public, and to also collect information, to identify information gaps, ideas, things that we can move forward with in the EIA process when we get to that, to identify studies and information that we need to have for the environmental impact assessment. The final thing is the environmental impact statement, which is the culmination of the assessment process. So basically our firm, our role is to get involved in the project in terms of reviewing the impacts from construction through to building, and involving the social and physical environmental aspects of it. What we do as a firm is to provide the independent audit, and where we see any negative impacts, we are going to explore the mitigation opportunities and any of the plans that would help to mitigate. As you've seen on one of the slides, we have a number of documents, and I hope you've had time to go into those documents. We want to, throughout the process, ensure that you have access to all the documents being utilized in the EIA. So the America's Cup website currently has all the documents you see here tonight, with the exception of the binders, and you can certainly contact us to have a closer look at those if you would like. This website will be updated as things progress. The plans are draft, the projections are draft. As things change, they'll be put back up on the website. As things become available, such as a scoping report at the end of this process, you will be able to access it on that website, and also the planning department website. Once the EIA is complete, you'll be able to also access that on the website for review, as well as on the planning website. So just in terms of where we've been in this scoping process, when we started the process in November, we developed a public and stakeholder consultation plan, which is on the website, and a copy's at the back of the room as well. And in terms of the process, we automatically made a list of key stakeholders that we went out to and had meetings with, and shared this information with key stakeholders so we could get the information back, see where there were gaps in information, and understand how we needed to move forward. So to date, in December and January, we have met with quite a few public and private sector stakeholders, all the relevant government agencies, service providers for power, water, waste management, transportation, tourism, other businesses, as well as NGOs. So it's quite a list, and tonight kicks off the public side of it with a meeting tonight and a meeting in Dockyard tomorrow to get comments and feedback from you, the public. I'd like to turn to the project description. Well, we'll start, I guess, with an overview of the site. Thanks, Andy. So just to orient, and Jack's going to do the pointing for me as I go through, just to orient ourselves where we are as to Great Sound, where the racing will take place, AC35 village location, and relative to Spanish Point. So there's a few things on reference points on here that you would know. So the Sound is basically where the racing will take place. As I mentioned in some of the documents online, we're working towards creating an on-water plan that will show some more details. Here is a little bit more of a close-up of what Dockyard looks like today, where the infill 9 acres is going to be going to facilitate the America's Cup event. You'll see also Kings and Heritage Wharf and Dockyard proper. So that's just a little bit of physical orientation to the site. I'm sure you all know where Dockyard is. So moving to the master plan, unfortunately it's a little bit fuzzy on this. I did just want to make a background point before I get into this about the use of the village. Current planning permission does allow the use of the land reclamation for America's Cup uses. In that approval, the uses weren't yet defined. So what we're doing now with this master plan is looking to define those uses. What is involved for us to host this event? So we're trying to refine that. Everything that's on the land reclamation, adjacent to the land reclamation, and farther afield, you'll see uses and works that are needed to support this particular event. So we'll get into those specifics in a moment. So in terms of the actual event village, the 9-acre site, this site is intended to be the event village that will contain a number of uses for the event. The uses will be team bases, other sailing programs such as Red Bull Youth and AC Endeavor. Obviously a number of viewing areas of different formats that have not yet been fully designed, but spaces have been demarcated on the site plan for that. We'll have obviously VIP facilities, media and broadcasting centers, retail, food, beverage locations. In terms of the entry to the site, that's the main entry, and at the entry will be a number of uses that facilitate entry use and create buzz for the area in terms of retail and sponsorship layouts. We also have an existing monument called the Magazine Building, which is going to be refurbished, cleaned up, with new doors put on. There's no specific use for it yet, but in the process of getting feedback, we may find something interesting to do with it. So again, early days. As you may have seen from the binder, the types of structures are all prefabricated structures, no more than 2 stories. They're items that at the end of the day will have to come off the site in accordance with legislation, so they're not going to be permanent structures. In terms of the marine-based items, there are a number of areas where super yachts of different sizes will be berthing. Starting over at Heritage Wharf on the inside, there's a proposed location there for super yachts. Also on the inside of King's Wharf. Moving over to the South Arm, yachts of various sizes to be docked on the inner and outer side of the South Arm and on the south side of the new land reclamation. So those are the proposed areas for yachts. Other marine-based facilities is a ferry berthing dock, which may also include the opportunity for spectator and public boat drop-offs. Jack's pointed out that location. Also, Marine Works include 4 small marinas for yacht tenders, race management, and other users that require access to the site by water. The markers that some of you would have seen at the regatta, those large markers, will also be stored roughly in that location. So moving farther afield to the off-site uses that will be used to facilitate the event, we have Moresby's Plain. Uses on Moresby's is going to be primarily for parking, for VIPs and event workers and event volunteers. There's also some camping proposed down on the coastline at Moresby. Stairs will connect from there across to the site so that people can access across the road and walk down to the site. Some container storage will also go on Moresby's for the team. That's the proposal at the moment. Additional off-site proposals could include, for this point in time, 2 pop-up hotels, one at the Victualling Yard and one at Lodge Point. Those are undefined in terms of size and scope at the moment, but at this point we're seeking basically in principle approval for the use of hotels that could be installed. Other locations may come to light through the scoping process that are better or more suitable. But for right now, there are 2 in play in this particular master plan version. One other important aspect off-site before we leave this slide is the transportation hub, where we do envision having taxis and buses and shuttle buses come to drop off individuals who wish to access the event center. And that's particularly important so we don't have a congested area as you come across. Everybody's aware how narrow the road gets as you come into Dockyard, and we still will be having cruise ships in, tours, buses, and regular transportation servicing them. So we need to have a facility where we can dedicate the space to transportation needs. So one of the other key off-site requirements is the parking for the event. And what we've tried to do is look at nearby sites where we can facilitate parking that are not too far and that you can either use a boat or shuttle. So for right now, we've got 1B, C, and D as areas that we have visited and also demarcated parking bays on, and the binders at the back with those detailed parking stats and layouts if you want to see that. So in terms of the parking stats, you can see from the slide that area 1A will have 350 parking for Moresby's, 460 for Boas Island, which is 1C. And this is a location that has an existing ferry dock that we would attempt to use a ferry shuttle for that location. Not sure whether it's in tandem with land shuttles or not, but certainly by ferry, because that one hosts 460 parking spaces and 700 bikes. So that's a primary one. These 1C to D spaces would be used all weekday races. When it comes to the weekend and we expect several more guests to be attending the events, we would look to engage parking areas out in 2A, B, C, and D, which are middle school, primary school, and Warren Simmons Field. So 3 schools and a community field at this point. have been designated to host parking areas on weekends only. And we would look to shuttle, have a joint shuttle between 2A and B, one serving both areas, and a shuttle between 2C and D to shuttle folks to the hub. So that's sort of where we're at in terms of the parking proposal. Again, all of this is draft and things are progressing, but we need feedback from everybody. And I think Mike covered the servicing aspect of things pretty well. Obviously, we need to look at potable water, sanitary servicing, power. Detailed plans for all of these things will have to be developed as this process goes on. We're looking for feedback from those particular service providers and anyone that can assist in developing those programs. So that's sort of where I can finish, unless Jack or Annie have anything to add.